After the defeat, Harold returned to Yorktown, only to be openly mocked by someone. He believed that the war was lost because Harold was a fool and a failure, and even pushed Harold away. So, Harold directly attacked his insulter, swiftly delivering a killing blow. Harold regained the trust of the townspeople and officially stationed in Yorktown. Not long after, Bjorn and Gunhild arrived in Yorktown. Harold warmly welcomed them, acting as if the previous battle hadn't happened. Bjorn came here to seek the help of Harold's army. But why did Harold choose to meet Bjorn? It turned out to be because of Gunhild, who was beside Bjorn. Harold had long been infatuated with Gunhild. After sundown, he found Gunhild for a private conversation. Even though she was Bjorn's fiancée, Gunhild's words sparked Harold's fighting spirit. She told Harold that if he could become the king of all of Norway, she'd consider becoming his queen. This scheme was the combined plot of Bjorn and Gunhild, aimed at using Harold's troops to attack Katagot. Meanwhile, Ivar also learned about Harold's defeat. Harold's adversary was Alfred. Years ago, when he and Ragnar were trapped in Wessex, he had played chess with Alfred. Ivar told Hvitserk that as soon as spring arrived the following year, he would gather his troops and head straight for Wessex. However, Hvitserk was not interested in this. He told Ivar that all this might have been arranged by Buddha. On the way there, he met a man on the street. A statue the man was selling caught Hvitserk's interest. It was something he had never encountered before. On the other hand, Alfred had just regained consciousness and attended his brother's funeral. Upon learning the truth about Ethelred's death, his emotions got the best of him. He couldn't accept that his mother had killed Ethelred to secure his reign. After Alfred vented his emotions, Judith told him that as a king, he could not have emotions. He cannot be sad like ordinary people, nor can he be angry like ordinary people. A king must always be ready to do the most terrible things and things that go against his conscience. And the crisis in Wessex was just getting started. Not long after, a soldier brought sudden news. They had spotted a fleet of Vikings heading towards Wessex. Given their marching speed, they would reach Wessex in a few days. But Wessex had just undergone a major conflict. Upon facing the imminent enemy, Alfred quickly summoned Ubbi to discuss countermeasures. Based on the intelligence received, Ubbi speculated that the invading fleet belonged to the Danes, with as many as 300 warships. But at this time, Wessex could only muster about 2,000 soldiers, clearly outmatched by the enemy's force. Torvi stated that their situation was very difficult. Ubbi stated that if he was appointed as the leader of the army, he might find a way to deal with the enemy. Otherwise, they would be without hope. Meanwhile, in Katagot, Hvitserk was deeply attracted by Buddhist teachings. A demon named Ivar had surfaced in Katagot. However, Hvitserk had yet to feel the call. So, under the witness of this Buddha statue, he broke the precepts time and again. At this time, Ivar was absorbed in his divine rule. Almost all of the people of Katagot had started to believe that Ivar was a god. The only person who could threaten Ivar at this point was Hvitserk. He decided to kill Hvitserk, but his wife, Freydis, stopped him. She believed that killing Hvitserk would only instill fear in the people, and a ruler who invoked fear could not last long. Her words reminded Ivar, although he couldn't kill Hvitserk, he could find a way to drive Hvitserk away from Katagot. So, in the middle of the night, he sneaked into Hvitserk's room. Hvitserk awoke in surprise. Ivar planned to send Hvitserk to the territory of King Olaf. He wanted Hvitserk to stay there until spring and then help him to strengthen the alliance. Hvitserk was clearly unwilling to be manipulated, but Ivar threatened him with Thora's life. If Hvitserk refused to go, death awaited Thora. Given no choice, Hvitserk had to agree to go to King Olaf's territory. And that was the beginning of his nightmare. When he arrived in King Olaf's territory, a dwarf greeted him. Everyone was surprised by the sudden visit from Ragnar's son. Hvitserk directly stated his intentions, that he wanted to see King Olaf. The dwarf said he could take Hvitserk to see King Olaf, but Hvitserk would need to undress completely. At this moment, King Olaf was taking a bath inside. Moreover, the first sight Hvitserk caught of King Olaf, he resembled a Buddha statue. In this moment, Hvitserk believed he had received a revelation from Buddha, because he decided to overthrow Ivar's rule. But King Olaf seemed to doubt his belief and immediately had Hvitserk arrested. Meanwhile, the devil was awakening. The statue of Ivar in the square was split in half, and a pig's head had been affixed to it. This was a tremendous insult to Ivar. He immediately ordered a citywide hunt and quickly found the perpetrator. It was Thora, Hvitserk's girlfriend. So Ivar showed her what hell was like. He made Thora watch as her loved ones were burned alive, and she herself did not escape this fate. After several days of torment, Hvitserk finally passed King Olaf's test. He finally agreed to mobilize his troops to attack Ivar. Meanwhile, Ivar seemed to be cursed, just like when he himself was born. Freydis gave birth to a deformed child for him. The misfortune also befell Judith. She found a lump in her breast. Out of desperation, she found a witch, but even the witch was helpless. Just as she was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared in her view. It was Lagertha, who had been missing for a long time. At this time, she was hiding in the corner and seemed to be greatly stimulated. So Judith immediately brought her back to Wessex. Perhaps the familiar environment of Wessex stimulated her memory. In her visions, Lagertha met Egbert, and she also encountered the scene of Ragnar's death.
Soon I shall be drinking ale from curved horns. This hero that comes into Valhalla does not lament his death. I shall not enter Odin's hall with fear. There, I shall wait for my sons to join. And when they do, I will bask in their tales of triumph. The Aesir will welcome me. My death comes without apology. And I welcome the Valkyries to summon me home.
I always dream of you. Last night, I dreamt you were feeding me blood pudding.
What does that mean?
It means you're giving me your heart.
In this manner, Lagertha gradually came back to reality. Alfred told her about the recent events. He told Lagertha that he had appointed Ubba as the commander-in-chief and was heading to the border with Torvi, and Bjorn was about to attack Katagot. At this time, Ubbi led 2,000 soldiers, preparing to resist 300 Danish warships. But bloodshed and sacrifice were always the worst solutions, and peaceful resolution was the best strategy. As such, he and Torvi went to the Danes' encampment. The couple had not even landed yet when they were surrounded by the Danes. They thought they would be besieged by the other side. But they were greeted with a warm welcome. People were knocking their shields and calling Ubbi's name.
You see? You're famous.
The Viking army that came to plunder England this time was led by 3 Danish kings. When they saw Ubbi, they were also surprised, never imagining that a son of Ragnar would be with the Christians. However, Ubbi didn't explain much, but just directly stated the conditions of the treaty. After discussion, 2 of the kings accepted Ubbi's proposal. However, King Frodo disagreed and insisted on invading Wessex. His refusal felt insulting to Ubbi, so Ubbi proposed a combat duel with King Frodo. King Frodo accepted Ubbi's challenge. The Viking duel rule is, only one person can survive. If King Frodo died, then they would have to agree to Ubbi's proposal. Similarly, if Ubbi unfortunately lost, they would have to attack Wessex together. It was a fight to the death, and both warriors gave it their all. But King Frodo seemed to be winning, and the outcome looked set. When he slowly approached Ubbi and prepared to launch the final judgment, Ubbi suddenly knocked him down. Both men quickly got up, and Ubbi's short knife showed its agility. The prolonged standoff exhausted them both, and after a brawl, both men collapsed. Ubbi was the most like Ragnar among all of Ragnar's sons.
Uber has won. The son of Ragnar has won.
After fighting to the death, he killed King Frodo. However, before the news of the victory had been delivered back to Wessex, the people received another piece of shocking news first. Judith took one last look at Alfred, and then passed away. She defended Alfred's throne. And as king, what Alfred had to do was manage Wessex well, to be a great ruler. Similarly, in the face of parting, Ivar chose to be proactive. Just like Ragnar did in the past, he came to the woods with his deformed son. Soon, Torvi returned to Wessex with the severely injured Ubbi. Alfred demanded that he be given full medical treatment. Torvi also saw Lagertha, who had been missing for a long time, in the crowd. The two embraced and wept. Alfred also fulfilled his promise and brought the Danish Vikings to the fiefdom of East Anglia.
Here is your land. Here is your new world. The world that Ragnar Lothbrok promised you, and his son Uber has delivered to you. This is the beginning of something new for all of us. May your gods and mine bless and prosper this settlement, and may it lead to perpetual peace between all our peoples.
Ragnar, do you see this? Are you watching this? This is our dream.
After treatment for a period of time, Ubbi's life was saved, but his faith had changed, because during the duel Jesus turned a deaf ear to his call, yet he could only sense the will of Odin and Thor. That boiling blood allowed him to achieve victory. Lagertha also felt the call of the gods. So when Ubbi and Torvi prepared to embark on the journey back to Northern Europe, Lagertha also went with them. At this moment, Ivar was in an extremely dangerous situation. On one hand, Hvitserk and King Olaf arrived at the border of Katagot. On the other hand, Bjorn and Harald were also heading towards the north. The conflict between Ivar and his wife also began to intensify. Upon hearing about the disappearance of her son, Freydis directly confronted Ivar. But unexpectedly, Ivar accused her of giving birth to a monster. But what really broke Freydis was when a hunter said he found half-eaten limbs while he was up in the mountains hunting. After hearing the news, Freydis was devastated. She had a big fight with Ivar and even almost died at his hands. The seeds of hatred began to germinate in Freydis' heart. Bjorn, ignoring Harald's dissuasion, insisted on setting off to attack Katagot in this season. Sure enough, they ran into a storm shortly after they set off and almost perished completely. Magnus experienced this for the first time and even started praying to Jesus. He completely forgot about his previous persona as a Viking. Although the fleet was severely damaged, they also safely reached land. But looking at the devastated fleet, Harald's determination to attack Ivar started to waver. He even thought about discussing collaboration with Ivar again. Of course, Bjorn would not agree. He stated that if Harald wanted to cooperate with Ivar, Harald would have to kill him first. And so the two of them started to fight.
I think you bleed like any other man.
At that moment, Gunhild rushed over and slapped Bjorn. Gunhild said that their goal is to become the king of Katagot, but they can only do so by taking it back from Ivar. If they want to continue fighting, then they should fight for Katagot, or fight for what they want. At this time, Hvitserk, leading King Olaf's army, arrived at the border of Katagot. When Bjorn saw them, his feelings were very complicated, because he didn't know which side Hvitserk was on. It was only after Bjorn came to Hvitserk's tent that he was sure Hvitserk was also there to attack Ivar. Hvitserk told Bjorn that he and King Olaf were planning to attack Ivar together, and that was the best news Bjorn had heard recently. At the same time, Ivar also felt threatened, so he began to organize people to reinforce the city's defense. Indeed, soon someone sent a message saying that Bjorn and Hvitserk's combined forces were officially allied, and they were preparing to attack Katagot. It seemed that an intense battle was unavoidable. They examined the defenses of Katagot together. It would be very difficult to launch a frontal attack. So King Olaf suggested negotiating with Ivar, but Bjorn and Hvitserk both refused his proposal. They both wanted Ivar to pay the price. At the crack of dawn, they were ready to launch an attack on Katagot. The coalition forces prepared to split into two groups and launch attacks separately. Bjorn led the team to attack from the front, and Hvitserk lurked outside the city walls, ready to launch a surprise attack. To avoid accidentally hurting their teammates, they used two different colors of paint to smear their faces. Ivar also went to the city wall to prepare to command the defense. The fight between brothers was about to begin. Bjorn gave the order and the frontal assault began at full speed. Under the cover of shields, they pushed the battering ram and ran towards the city gate. But soon they entered the range of the defending army. Facing the rain of arrows, those who attacked the city gate were fearless. Soon they were at the foot of the city, madly attacking the city gate.
Shoot back!
Ivar, on the city tower, seemed confident about his defense. Rounds of arrow rain were shot at them. Fortunately, Gunhild covered them from the rear. On the other side, the strike team led by Harald and Hvitserk also seized the opportunity to launch an attack. They charged at the city walls with ladders. At this point, the coalition's attack on Katagot officially began, and the Vikings' blood was boiling at this moment. Magnus hid under the cart and prayed in the face of the crazy suppression of the defenders. After completing the cover, Hvitserk rushed out of the crowd. With the help of others, he quickly climbed the city wall and entered the city tower. Others were still charging. Although a few soldiers climbed the city wall, they paid a high price. There was also a berserker on the city tower, who showed no mercy to the attackers. He rushed to Harald and knocked Harald's weapon out of his hand. Without any other option, he had to jump off the city tower. At this time, Hvitserk was also in a state of defeat, being forced to climb down the city wall. Bjorn's situation was no better. He couldn't break through the city gate, but the defending army's attacks continued unabated. Faced with such a situation, they used ladders and ropes to climb the city walls to disperse the intensive attack from above. But all of this seemed to be within Ivar's calculations. He immediately ordered the pouring of boiling oil, hellfire obscuring the eyes of the gods. Bjorn had no time to consider other things. He could only continue to batter the city gate. But King Olaf tried to call upon Odin's will. They were all sons of Ragnar. Maybe Odin couldn't decide either, leaving Katagot to become scorched earth. Just when Bjorn was almost in despair, a miracle happened. After being tempered by the intense fire, the city gate gradually shattered. With a heavy blow, they finally broke through the gate of Katagot. Everyone surged into the city gate, thinking that victory was near. Unexpectedly, this was Ivar's trap. He immediately ordered to cut off Bjorn's way back. By the time Bjorn reacted, they were completely surrounded. Apart from anger, Bjorn seemed unable to do anything at this moment. Facing his own brother, Ivar showed no mercy either. Under round after round of arrow attacks, they became like lambs to the slaughter. The soldiers around him fell one by one, and his own life was hanging by a thread. But sitting and waiting for death was not his style. He found an opportunity to lead the remaining people to break out. At the same time, Gunhild also appeared on the city wall and successfully met Bjorn. The two of them had no time to think and jumped off the city wall to escape the battlefield. Facing Ivar in full swing, they could only order a retreat. Bjorn was extremely unwilling in his heart but couldn't do anything about it. He tried to awaken the people of Katagot.
I am Bjorn Ivar, son of Ragnar. I grew up with many of you. You were my neighbors, my friends. We played together when we were children. I am not your enemy. Ivar is your enemy. He rules over you with tyranny and cruelty. He wants to destroy everything my father. He's lying.
His words seemed to have some effect. When Ivar's brutality was exposed, his heart was filled with extreme panic. He hastily ordered people to kill Bjorn. However, at this moment, people hesitated, and a part of the people silently put down their crossbows. He snatched the bow and arrow and shot at Bjorn to try and stop him from talking. On the other side, the team also suffered heavy losses. Magnus prepared to charge, but was pulled back by Harald in time, thinking he could escape this calamity. The next moment, an arrow pierced his body. Whether he was the son of Ragnar or not, his life was destined to end in Katagot. The remnants of the army returning to camp were divided, and Harald and King Olaf intended to abandon the attack on Ivar. It was clear that all their tactics had been anticipated by Ivar, and it was meaningless to forcefully attack the city gate. But Hvitserk and Bjorn did not intend to give up just like that, but they had no solution to the situation. Although Ivar had won, he was also extremely uneasy inside. Because his team also began to waver, they missed the best opportunity to kill Bjorn. Therefore, the people who hesitated on the city wall were ruthlessly executed by him. At the revelrous banquet, Freydis was out of place. Having lost her child, she was always surrounded by pain, and she would become the key to opening the gate of Katagot. Taking advantage of the celebration party, Freydis came to Bjorn's camp alone. Ever since she lost her child, Ivar had been a devil-like existence in Freydis' heart, and she was here to help Bjorn and his team. Bjorn's coalition army directly marched into the city through a secret tunnel. Without the defense of the city walls, their abilities showed a great advantage. And the people in the city also lost their will to fight, so Bjorn didn't meet much resistance. He didn't want to slay his own people anymore either and promptly stopped the fighting. Their only target was Ivar. Facing Bjorn's boastful yelling, Ivar hid behind his guards. At this time, a soldier took the lead and rushed out. Hvitserk stopped the soldiers around him, took it upon himself to enter the battlefield, and resolve this feud. Ivar, however, left the battlefield silently, for he realized that he had lost the battle. But if Bjorn could easily break into the city, there must have been a traitor. The first person he thought of was Freydis. Facing Ivar's questioning, Freydis did not deny it. She directly confessed that she did it herself.
I will always love you. I love you, Freydis.
At the same time, the battle outside was nearing its end. Under their alliance, Ivar's personal soldiers were slaughtered, but Bjorn, who was the first to respond, was a bit drained. He was knocked down by the enemy and was in a very dangerous situation. Harald noticed the situation over there but hesitated for a moment before stepping in to rescue Bjorn. After completely eradicating Ivar's personal guards, they began to look for Ivar. But Ivar had already disappeared, leaving only the body of Freydis in the house. In this battle between brothers, Ivar was deserted and was defeated by Bjorn. Bjorn's bravery was also recognized by King Olaf. Ubbi, who had rushed back from Wessex, just witnessed this moment. The three brothers finally reunited, but the biggest surprise for Bjorn was seeing his mother, Lagertha, holding the sword of the king, announcing to everyone that Bjorn had become the king of Katagot.
Hail King Bjorn!
What are you fighting for? What do you see?
Power.
Power is always dangerous. It attracts the worst and corrupts the best.
Power is only given to those who are prepared